In the past, we've almost had single player by accident. For a good part of the development of the original Mass Effect, we were trying to figure out how it can be multiplayer and how you can have a friend as part of your story. And ultimately we didn't, not because we didn't want to, but because we just couldn't figure out how to do it. You do really have to build the game from the ground up with a specific solution in mind for it to work and for you to get the best of both worlds. And that's what we eventually figured out with Anthem.
What it comes down to is, while this is a shared world, while this is our world, this is my story. So when I'm in Fort Tarsis, when I'm in the hub, this is a single player experience where I'm interacting with characters, I'm having bits of story, I'm experiencing and learning about the lore. When I go on a mission, we're doing that mission together and experiencing the events of those missions together. But then when I go back to Fort Tarsis, I'm able to see the consequences and the choices that have occurred on that mission reflected back at me. So what we're really trying to do is make it be a communal storytelling to some degree, where you can talk about the experiences you had on a mission with your friends and not worry about spoiling things to them, but you can keep the more private moments to yourself and experience that more personal story on your own.
Your story is actually really a single player story, and you decide what happens next. If you go out and get something in the world as part of a mission and bring it back, you decide which character you're going to give it to, which relationships you're going to foster. You have your own progress through the story.
Is the easy division, all story happens in Tarsis, all gameplay, action gameplay happens in the open world?
It's not quite as simple as that, because there's story that happens in the open world with your friends. Like you and me and a couple other people, we're freelancers, we're going on a mission. So we'll hear our ciphers, who are your team support. They'll be telling us about the specifics of the mission, where to go, what to do. You'll see some cutscenes in the open world with you and your team. So there is story deliverance in the open world, and there's many ways that we can do that. And when you play the game, you'll see more of that stuff. The consequence and the choice and the personal relationships with the characters, that is primarily done in the hub.
So if you're playing with your friends, will there be situations where you're out on a mission and you can hear the NPC back in Tarsis talking to the player character, the one who posted the quest, but as one of the friends, you'll be like, well, I did this mission, and it seems like that NPC is treating you differently, or is more hostile towards you, friendly towards you, anything like that?
You will hear your NPC towards you. The NPC might be hostile, but the other person who's going on the mission will hear the different version of the NPC. So essentially, the mission is the same structure, but the flavoring around it when you're in the open world is different based on the choices that you've made.
Realistically, when you're playing missions with your friends, is it going to be a lot of conversations about what state is your Tarsis in? Like, oh, that one lady in the back alley, she screwed me over. What'd she do for you? Like that type of thing?
I mean, that would be great if we actually got that kind of conversation occurring. My actual expectation is that people, for the most part, will keep that somewhat private. They'll talk about it a little bit. One thing we see with other BioWare games, the single-player BioWare games, is that people don't share their story experiences very much. They talk about like their love of the game, they talk about potentially characters that they like, but they're very reluctant to share that experience, partially because it's very personal, but partially because they're always worried about spoilers. I think we'll get a little bit more of that, more sharing, because I know where you are approximately, so I know that you've interacted with that woman, and so that I know we can talk about that woman and not worry about spoiling, even though we've maybe branched. But I think people will still, it's a more one-on-one experience. I think people will probably hold that to themselves a little bit.
I mean, would you go so far as to say playing missions with your friends is just impossible to have this game spoiled because so much of the story juice is back in Tarsis?
Yeah, I mean, we will exactly right. Is the story is the consequence hub is really Tarsis, is really Fort Tarsis. So when you're out on a mission, we will only want you playing missions that are appropriate to where you are in the crit path. So we will occasionally kind of guide you away from things that might be spoilery. There's some story out there. But yeah, pretty much, if you're playing the game with other people, you're not getting your story spoiled.
That seems so hard. And imagining what those story nuggets look like in the open world, it's like, how do you keep that from being vanilla?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you get with a shared world is it means that the changes you can affect to the world are different. Because if it's a single player world, a world where it's my world, then we can do all kinds of things. We can crash a castle into a mountain and cover it in spiders, and that's the world now. When we are experiencing the world together and we're potentially at different points in the story, we need to see the world as approximately the same. But we can change things in such a way that your context change. You understand the world differently. Things, the banter you're getting, the radio chatter you're getting is different, thus framing the experience different for what you're experiencing compared to what other people are experiencing, even though you're playing the same mission.
Do you have a message for fans that, I mean, maybe they've played Old Republic and are just a little bit worried about, like, I don't know if BioWare can pull off a fully co-op focused story. Like, what's the message to those people?
Well, the message that I'd have to people who are kind of concerned about our storytelling is we've been very, very specific about how we want to do this. It's been in the plan from day one. The DNA of this game is about having great adventures with your friends. But that doesn't mean we don't have a great story, great sets of characters, people that you want to learn about, people that you want to form relationships with, people that you want to meet. We have all of that, and we found the way with this framework to be able to do it. And I wouldn't worry about it at all.
I mean, we had a similar thing when we started Mass Effect, because we had never done, you know, a science fiction RPG in our own IP, obviously, before. We'd done Star Wars, but people know Star Wars. So then it was kind of like, well, what's this Mass Effect thing? Why don't you just do, you know, the next Star Wars game? And I think it's a similar thing here. And where that concern starts to go away for me as a player and as a BioWare fan is in playing it and just walking around the world. Because what you see is a world where, first of all, it's out there for you to go and discover on your own. And the game is not telling you, here is the next thing that you have to do. You kind of look at a set of things that you want to do, or you can go and explore on your own. And so it's things like that that start to make it feel like a BioWare game, and going and checking something out, realizing that you've just uncovered the beginning of a whole bunch of lore and world stuff to discover. And then the other thing is just walking around the base at Fort Tarsis and hearing like ambient dialogue about what's going on in the world, and you hear someone say something and you walk over to them and you find out what's up with them and they've got something going on. And then that's where for me it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a BioWare game.
So ultimately, what'll keep people playing this game?
This is a game that's really much more about, it's about progression and that long loot chase. So it's about acquiring your 4 javelins and then building those up and really perfecting those javelins to your play style, so that in the Elder game you can go on stronghold, which are like raids, and other Elder game content to really experience the pinnacle of mastery around your javelin and around gameplay. So it's really about that. And then in the live service, the game is designed so that we can deliver additional story throughout the live service and can keep you coming back, learning a little bit more about what's going on in Anthem.
But there will be a signature, like, climactic moment for the crit path.
Yeah, so there is a critical path, and the critical path will reach a climax, will reach a conclusion, but then the game really, at that point, rather than closing down, it's really about opening it up and really giving you the opportunity to become a freelancer, to enter out into the world, and now it's almost like it's the beginning of the adventure as opposed to the end. There's a moment of closure, but then there's so much more to do.
And you're feeling confident that players will see credits roll and they'll sit back in their chair and say, that was a BioWare story.
I mean, it is definitely a story that we are telling in a different way, and we definitely are cognizant of the fact that this is a communal experience, and really focusing more on the action and the fun and that visceral nature of the gameplay. But I do think that that at its core, this is still a game anchored on characters, anchored on storytelling through characters, which is really the hallmark of what a BioWare game is.